How do you transform a program with no real history of success into the dynasty in women's basketball over the past decade? When Dawn Staley took over South Carolina in 2008, she inherited a program with no championship tradition, sparse fan attendance, and a roster that had never tasted anything remotely close to elite success. The program had reached the NCAA tournament just twice in the previous decade. 16 years later, Staley has led the Gamecocks to 3 national championships, built one of the most dominant programs in college basketball, and created a leadership model that's redefining how we think about developing high performers. Staley has led the program to these unprecedented heights by empowering her teams through her signature philosophy of loving her players enough to let them fail. Welcome to the highest level. I'm Coach Evan, and today we're breaking down Dawn Staley's leadership model, the empowerment philosophy and transformation strategies that turned a struggling program into a dynasty. By the end of this case study, you'll have 5 proven leadership principles that create sustainable excellence through empowerment rather than control, whether you're leading a Fortune 500 transformation or building a startup team from scratch. Let's dive in. First, let's take a moment to appreciate the magnitude of what Dawn Staley has achieved. 3 national championships as a head coach, a basketball Hall of Famer as both a player and as a coach, 3 Olympic gold medals as a player and another as a coach, a 6-time WNBA All-Star, and an Olympic flag bearer for the United States. But Staley's leadership is so relevant for business leaders because she didn't inherit a winning program. She built one from practically nothing. When she arrived at South Carolina, the arena was empty. The program had 0 national presence, and there was no recruiting pipeline, no championship culture, and no foundation to build on. Staley's challenge mirrors exactly what many business leaders face. How do you transform a struggling organization when you don't have the resources, the reputation, or the track record to attract top talent? How do you build belief on a team that has never won? Earlier in this series, we covered how legendary Tennessee coach Pat Summitt combined care with high standards to establish accountability on her teams. She demanded excellence while genuinely caring about her players. Staley's model is slightly different. She creates empowerment through trust. Instead of pushing, she releases control. She lets players fail, figure it out, and develop their own internal drive. This distinction matters tremendously when it comes to modern leadership, and Staley's empowerment model offers a blueprint for transformation that any leader can utilize. Let's break down the 5 principles that make it work. The Dawn Staley leadership model. Principle 1. Love them enough to let them fail. This is Dawn Staley's signature leadership principle, and it directly challenges how most leaders think about developing their people. Staley said, quote, "I'm very different from your parents because your parents don't want you to fail, and they don't want you to be uncomfortable. I tell my players I love you enough to allow you to fail." Now, this sounds counterintuitive. Shouldn't a leader's job be to protect their team from failure? Staley sees it differently. She understands that resilience can only be developed through actually experiencing setbacks. You can't learn to recover from failure if you've never been allowed to fail. While it may appear that she's abandoning her players when they're struggling and need her most, Staley's really preparing them for the competition they'll face as the stakes rise and the pressure mounts. She tells them, if you're trying to get to the next level, you're going to have those days. And if you can't operate in that space, you're not going to be at the next level. This is leadership with a long-term view. Short-term, it might be easier to step in and solve every problem. But that creates dependency, not the development needed to sustain success at the highest levels. This is crucial to understand because most organizations reward managers for preventing problems, not developing resilient teams. So they overmanage, they overprotect, and they overcontrol. While this can resolve issues in the short term, it also creates teams that can't function without constant guidance. The tactical takeaway. Don't be afraid to let your team struggle or fail. Identify situations where you're protecting them from the productive struggle. The resilience they'll need tomorrow will come from letting them figure it out together today. This is the foundation of empowerment-based leadership. Trusting your people enough to let them experience difficulty and being there to help them grow through it, not around it. That's how resilient teams are forged. The key takeaway: productive struggle builds resilience that protection never can. Principle 2: meet people where they are. Dawn Staley does not have a one-size-fits-all development program. She has a philosophy that requires her to deeply understand each individual before she can lead them effectively. When describing her own leadership, she said, quote, "What makes me a great coach is I know how to meet people where they are to take them where they need to go." That sounds simple, but think about what that actually requires. You can't meet someone where they are unless you know where they are. That means understanding their background, their struggles, their support systems, their fears, and their motivations, not just their statistics or playing style. In an NBA head coaching interview with the Portland Trail Blazers, Staley was asked how she would handle superstars. She emphasized the importance of the coach's relationship with players and really knowing who they are. She said, quote, "I've got superstars on my team now. I treat them like people. There's a relationship there. They are people when it comes down to it. And coaches who are very successful in the NBA or on any level, they know their players. They take the time to talk to them. They have lunch with them. They spend time together. And that's what people want." Most organizations get this wrong by treating development as standardized programming. They put everyone through the same training, the same onboarding, and the same performance reviews. Of course, that's the easiest thing to do, but that's not how the top organizations operate. People aren't standardized. They come from different backgrounds with different gaps and different strengths. And it's the leader's job to know and understand all of that. The tactical takeaway: before you can develop someone, you need to understand their starting point. Invest the time to understand each person as an individual, then customize your development approach to meet them where they actually are, not where you assume they should be. The key takeaway: you can't take people where they need to go until you understand where they are. Principle 3: build culture one win at a time. When Dawn Staley arrived at South Carolina, she had a vision. She said, quote, "When I came to South Carolina, I came with one purpose: become a national powerhouse and win a national championship." But vision without execution is just fantasy. And Staley didn't have the resources, the reputation, or the fan base to execute that grand vision immediately. So she did something that most impatient leaders refuse to do. She built the program one relationship at a time. Long before the championships, Staley talked about how she mom and popped it in the early days, meaning that she was personally shaking hands, meeting people in the community, and encouraging them to come to games. When the arena was empty, she didn't complain about the lack of support. She went out and built that support, one person at a time. The systematic, patient approach to culture building eventually created one of the most intimidating home court advantages in women's college basketball. But it didn't happen overnight. It happened through thousands of small wins and small interactions that accumulated into something powerful. And those early efforts paid off. As support grew, Staley later reflected, the fans really did the job of making us look like a national championship team. But the fans didn't just come show up because the team started winning. They showed up because Staley invested in relationships before she had the results to show. She built belief before she had proof. And that led to the program's watershed moment, A'ja Wilson's recruitment in 2014. 6 years into her tenure, Staley's patient culture building produced a breakthrough that changed everything. In 2014, Staley convinced A'ja Wilson, the nation's top recruit and future two-time WNBA MVP, to stay in her home state and play for the Gamecocks. But Wilson didn't choose South Carolina because they were winning championships, because they hadn't won one yet. She chose a program on the rise, a program that was built through 6 years of fan forums, community outreach, and genuine investment in people. That big win of getting Wilson to come to South Carolina was simply the compound interest on thousands of small deposits. This is such an important leadership lesson because most leaders want transformation to happen quickly. They announce big visions, launch major initiatives, and expect rapid culture change. But culture doesn't change through announcements. Culture change that lasts is built one small win at a time. The tactical takeaway: Culture is built in the compound interest of small wins. Identify the mom and pop work your transformation requires. Find the small, unglamorous relationship building activities that accumulate into cultural change. Do them consistently, even when no one's watching, even when results aren't visible yet. That relentless focus on small wins creates a big cultural change. This is the transformation through patience, and why Staley's culture change has proven so durable. The key takeaway: culture changes through accumulated small interactions, not big announcements. Principle 4, the 24-hour rule. Dawn Staley developed this principle in the aftermath of the 2015 season, where South Carolina lost by 1 point in the championship game. Even though the program reached the Final Four for the first time in program history, that 1-point loss was a painful experience that Staley couldn't shake. Staley later admitted, "We were on the brink. They looked like a national championship team. But I had a hard time getting over that loss because it was my childhood dream." She was devastated, depressed, and couldn't get herself motivated. And she watched her players go through the same thing. So that's when she created the 24-hour rule. She said, quote, "When you lose, it's devastating to a competitor, and you're either going to have the mental capacity to keep going or not. The rule is simple. 24 hours from a win or a loss, we move on." This applies perhaps most importantly to victories as well. You get 24 hours to celebrate a win, then it's back to work. No dwelling on past success any more than dwelling on past failure. Staley explained her reasoning. Let it go. At times, you have to learn the steps to becoming a national champion. And part of that is losing. Losing can bring out the ugly parts in you, but you have to move on and you have to keep moving. This ability to create a disciplined framework for processing setbacks is crucial to building resilient teams that win consistently. Most organizations have no framework for processing failure or success. Bad quarters create cultures of blame that persist for months, and good quarters create complacency that undermines future performance. Without emotional discipline, results become self-reinforcing. Failure breeds more failure. Success breeds complacency. The tactical takeaway: create explicit time boundaries around successes and failures. Give your team permission to feel the emotions fully for a defined period. Then create a clear transition ritual that moves everyone into forward-focused mode. The specific time frame matters less than the discipline of having one. This is emotional resilience as a system, and this is why Dawn Staley's teams maintain consistent performance through the inevitable ups and downs of competition. The key takeaway: emotional discipline prevents setbacks from becoming spirals. Principle 5, radical honesty with genuine care. Dawn Staley doesn't sugarcoat feedback. She is direct about the expectations, direct about performance, and direct about consequences. And she makes no apologies for it. Here's how she described her approach. Quote, "I'm probably not the coach for everybody. If you can handle real truth and real conversations, you're probably not going to like it, but you respect it. I'm going to tell it like it is, and that's the only way I know how." When players bring up NIL money in recruiting conversations, Staley has a direct response. What if you don't produce? She's not against players earning money. She's for honesty about the relationship between performance and reward. But here's what separates Staley's directness from mere harshness. It comes from genuine care. She believes that honesty and love aren't opposites. They're complements. The key is that Staley's honesty serves the player's development, not her own ego. She's honest because she cares about their growth, not because she enjoys being critical. Players can feel that difference. She tells her players, if you're trying to learn and grow and do things as a young adult right now, these are some of the life lessons you need to learn. This credibility, earned through her genuine care of each player's lives as athletes and as young women, gives Staley the permission to be direct. Players trust her feedback because she's been where they want to go and they know she really cares about them. The tactical takeaway: be radically honest about performance and genuinely invested in people's development. The combination creates respect that neither honesty nor care alone can achieve. This is the foundation of trust, and this is why Staley's players respect her even when they don't like what she's telling them. The key takeaway: honesty and care are multipliers, not trade-offs. Now here's how all these principles work together in practice. Look at South Carolina's journey from the devastating 2015 Final Four loss to winning the 2017 national championship. This is empowerment-based leadership creating excellence under pressure. You had love them enough to let them fail. When senior star Elena Coates went down with a devastating injury just as March began, Staley didn't panic and impose control. She trusted her players to adapt to a completely new four-guard system in the middle of a championship run. You had meeting people where they are. Rather than forcing the team to execute what they could no longer do, Staley adjusted to what this reconfigured roster was actually capable of, spreading the floor and playing to their new strengths. You had building culture one win at a time. 9 years of fan forums, community outreach, and relationship building had created a belief system that carried the team when talent alone couldn't. They believed they could win because Staley had been building that belief since day one. You had the 24-hour rule. Born from the 2015 heartbreak, this framework kept the team moving forward through adversity and external doubt without letting setbacks compound. You had radical honesty with genuine care. Staley had direct conversations about new roles without sugarcoating the challenge. The players knew exactly what was required and trusted her enough to embrace it. The result: a championship nobody thought they could win, except for them. So there you have it. Dawn Staley's leadership model broken down into 5 empowerment principles. The bottom line: Staley didn't transform South Carolina through control. She transformed it through empowerment. She trusted her players enough to let them struggle, cared enough to be honest with them, and was patient enough to build culture the right way. If you found this valuable, subscribe for more championship leadership case studies. Next week, we're breaking down Toto Wolff and how he leads at the bleeding edge of performance in Formula One racing, where split-second decisions determine championships. And if you're a business leader navigating a team transformation and want to apply these empowerment principles in your organization, check out the link in the description. I work with executives who want to build culture that develops resilient leaders, not followers. Until next time, lead like a legend.